But first, I'm going to point you down here and we're going to create a stain wash using the Fusion Mineral Paints. If you're in Australia, you can get them straight off my website, irestorestuff.com. For those of you who've never created a stain, so we've got a plain pine board here. And in Australia right now, actually with the Fusion paints, there's a gorgeous popular stain wash that people have been loving, which is the Algonquin colour, and it's this tanny taupey colour. But in Australia, we're just currently out of stock of that at the moment. So I wanted to show you some other options, and I've done some testing today using this plain little pine tag here, which I've used as a tester to create a couple of stains. So this is the colour Woodwick as a stain. You can see the grain of the wood in there, and this is the colour Woodwick mixed with a bit of cobblestone. And I've mixed a bit of a white with this colour, and it creates this gorgeous tanny coloured wash. So it looks a bit, I don't know, I just like the driftwoody kind of tone to it. So I'm just going to point you down here. We'll get started on creating a stain using a couple of fun colours. So we've got the colour Woodwick, which is a new colour from Fusion, and it's a brown colour, and then we've got the colour Cobblestone, which is just an off-white. So realistically you could use Woodwick mixed with any kind of off-white colour. I wouldn't go with the bright whites. I would sort of tend to lean more towards the off-white colours, and we're sort of trying to create, so this is the Woodwick, and then this is Woodwick mixed with a bit of white. So we're creating a bit of a wash. It's like a whitewash, but it's not a whitewash. I'd call it a tan wash. We want to use sort of equal parts, but I am going to be just mixing whatever today. And I've got a bit of a sponge to apply it with. I've got my misting water mister that I can use if I want to just create a bit more of a runnier look. I've also bought a brush. Okay, so what I want to do is I did bring a teaspoon to measure, but look, I don't want to use a lot, so I'm just going to honestly do a bit of a drip of the Woodwick. Maybe several drips. I'm just going to be looking at my blob there and seeing a coin, I don't know, a coin's worth. So this one's a little runnier. This is cobblestone, so I'm just mixing a bit of Woodwick with cobblestone. And then when you're creating a wash, you usually add water. I'm just trying to get equal parts here. You can test it out for yourself. Let me just grab some paper towel. So just showing you different ways that you can create a stain or a wash using some paints. And we get a very similar colour, and I'm not saying it's the same, but it's sort of a similar colour to Fusion's colour Algonquin, which is out of stock here in Australia at the moment. So if you are a lover of that colour, you can create something similar using Woodwick and just one of the off-whites. Just have a little experiment. And because we're creating it a wash, it really doesn't have to be exactly the same colour. This is the colour I'm sort of going for, so that's a little bit darker. So I can just add a touch more Woodwick in there. Just a touch more. We're staining our board ready for painting the sign. Oops, there we go. So mixing it around with my brush, and I wipe that off on the side and really we're just creating a bit of a wash. It doesn't even matter if it has streaks in it, because we're going to be it sort of all lends to the look of the grain of the wood. So yeah, I think we want it slightly darker still. So we're just kind of going with the colour until we figure out around about how much we need. And you can either add water or you can brush it straight on and then wipe it off immediately for a bit of a darker stain. And I'm just going to go with that. So there's a couple of ways to do it. Again, you can either wipe this on or add a bit of water first, and then you've got yourself a wash. Usually I would do, a lot of people do a 50-50 stain wash. It's really a matter of how dark you want your stain. So you could even do this, mist the brush, and that adds a bit of water to your brush. I've got my dry sponge ready, and then I've got a wet cloth ready in case I've got way too much. So here's our stain that we're going for here, and I'm actually just putting that paint straight on there, but I'll let you know we can mist that and move it around a bit more and create more of a wash kind of a look to that. So now that we've got that one bit painted on, I'll let you know what we do with our sponge is we can just rub it back until you see the grain of the wood. If it's not rubbed back enough, you could use a wet cloth, but a wet cloth might remove too much. So it's just a matter of experimenting with how much you want. You can spread that over the sides. Just adding a bit more so I can... Adding water. That's just water in the spray bottle. And we are going to be making a welcome sign. A dog welcome sign. I'm even going to spray that with a bit of water. You could add a whole bunch of water and really wash that right out, but you can kind of still see the grain of the wood through there. So let's do that again. Adding the wash on. Now, if you wanted to, just dampen. Oop, those misting bottles are wonderful for just spreading it around a bit more. If you wanted less colour, you would water it down by simply, literally pouring water in there. But because I don't want to do, lots and lots of coats of this, I just want to get it on. But if I did want a lighter coat, then I could water it down. And for those of you in Australia who are wanting that Algonquin wash that we're currently out of stock of, you can see that we've got a very similar look right there using, and those two colours I mixed together. I'm even going to wet this extra part of the board here, not the extra, the last little bit that we're doing. And oftentimes, I should mention too, when you're painting or staining pine board, sometimes it will be a little patchy. So in that case, I should have, or what you should do before you use your pine board, is condition the wood, and you can either use a proper wood conditioner, or what I have also done at times is used a little bit of a shellac based varnish, and that just seals the grain of the wood. Otherwise the stain gets into the fibres and causes a bit of a real patchy look. Let's just get those edges. Always get your edges because it looks a bit neater than just having that, blank raw pine look on the sides. I love having the natural wood look, yeah. So we're going to get the end. This is called the end grain. That often, when you're staining a board, that often takes a lot more paint than the other areas of the board. And again, just wiping that along the edge. Want to make sure it's all even. So when you're going along the grain, just make sure on this edge here, you've got that all feathered off so that it's not creating a line or a streak down that way. And I just about used everything that I had in there for that method. So it was about, you're going to ask me measurements, but it was about a coin's worth. Let's say in Australia, maybe a 10 to 20 cent piece size. That'd probably be a quarter size, I guess, in the US. Okay, we get that on the end and we rub that in and get the ends off. Right, so we're going to allow that to dry. I really like that. So once you've created a wash type look, I'll just pop that in the water to clean. Once you've allowed that to dry, and once we've done our sign on it, then we would seal that. So right now it's still a little damp, a little wet, but let me show you, this is sort of the look that we were going for. There's the darker woodwick on that side. This side was cobblestone mixed with woodwick, and it creates that beautiful Algonquin kind of wash look, tanned wash look. So that's the raw pine there, and here is the finished wash. So it creates a lovely look. I like it. You can also use that to go over your darker wood pieces to really lighten them up and create a bit of it's kind of an oak kind of look, I think. All right, this one we're going to be using, don't forget to use my code iRestoreStuff, save 10%, anything online. This is for USA shipping. Okay, so I've basically sped up this part, but if you want to see any of my in-depth stenciling videos, you can check out my YouTube channel. I've got lots of tutorials there for you. I'm just taping down this main part of the stencil. I'm using a white color called Parchment from Fusion Mineral Paint and using one of Essential Stencils brushes. So any of Essential Stencils products, you can get 10% off using my code iRestoreStuff at essentialstencil.com. So I'm just going over all of the stencil in white. Now the reason I can do it quite fast with that swirling motion is because I've wiped off the excess paint onto that brown piece of paper that you see beside the board there. So when you do that, it really removes the excess so we don't get any bleeding underneath the stencil or fuzzy edges. So I've left that center line of wording there because I'm going to use the white to create a shadow. So I'm showing you a shadowing technique here. I've also got lots of videos on that if you want to see that in depth or slowed down. This is just my sped up process. So what we do to create the shadow, see how I just shifted that slightly to the left or right, doesn't really matter which way you shift it, just shift it slightly to one side and slightly up, so maybe at a 45-degree angle, imagining that that white is going to be a shadow, and the coal black that I'm using right now, this is Fusion's Coal Black, is going to be the actual stenciled wording of the sign. So we'll go over then over the white, and because I've shifted it slightly, we'll see that white peeking through as a shadow underneath, as if it was really a shadow. So it kind of gives it a 3D look, makes it really pop and stand out. So then for this part, I'm also going to stencil and over the "We hope you like" sentence in the center there. So the whole thing gets covered with this black now, even though I only used the white on part of it. So you can see the white really shadows the background of that part, but the "We hope you like" words are just in plain black. Now I'm going to add these little puppy paw prints. This is a stencil set that actually comes to be used as a round, so for a round sign decor. So you can see the puppy paw prints are curved in that way. But I'm just going to use it as two side items for this sign. Either side, we add the paw prints there. Some of them are solid paw prints and some of them are just an outline. So it's a fun, cute little addition. And you could also add some of these, use some of these paw prints with that same shadowing technique, like I've done with that paw print in the middle of the word dogs. You can see the paw print has that shadow on it because we chose to use that shadowing method for that section as well. So you can choose to use any colors you like. This is just my basic stenciling techniques. So we offload the brush to create a really dry brush method, and then use your stencil brush in a swirling motion. If you like to practice, just practice on a piece of cardboard until you get the right amount on your paintbrush, because you really do want it less on your brush. You can always go over with a second coat, but it's really hard to take off the paint once you've caused those fuzzy edges on your stencil. To finish off the project today, I'm just going to seal this with Fusion's SFO, Stain and Finishing Oil. But this one isn't a stain because it's the natural, which is their clear. And so we're just going to pop a little bit on the cloth and then simply wipe it across. So you can use a sponge applicator for this. Just make sure your surface is clean, and then we just run that across. You can add a little bit more than that. Making sure your applicator has plenty on it. And you can see, finished my signboard. Yeah, use a lint-free cloth. You'll be able to see. You can also brush this on. I use an applicator just to get it nice and smooth, but you can also use just a cheap chip brush, because this isn't a stain and finishing oil, and so the cleanup is something like mineral terps. In Australia, that's what we call it anyway. Not sure what you would call it in the USA. Just running out in my can here, but anyway, it just seals it. You can use other finishes for this. You don't have to use the stain and finishing oil. You could use the Fusion's Tough Coat Sealer, just like a wipe-on poly varnish. And this is just one coat. Now I've gotten just down to the word dogs. I just wanted to try and hold this up in a certain light so you can kind of see. So it does just tone any varnish or any sealer you put over the top of a stain wash. Because you've opened the grain, it's quite a porous finish, and you've compromised the paint by adding water to it to water it down as a wash. So you always put a sealer on top, but it will go deeper and darker than what it shows. It shows quite light here, so it's just deepening that color. Still the same nice wash look. So just adding that here. I should have used one of my sponge applicators, so you can sort of see the difference there. If you brush yours on, just make sure that you remove the excess once it's all brushed on. You don't want any brush strokes showing. Then the best way is to use that applicator and just go nice and smoothly along with the grain, like that. And don't forget your edges. There you go, finished sign.